United States has the world's biggest and richest economy. You can get pretty much anything here. So then why are men from all over the world flying Turkish hairlines? How did Istanbul become Bald Mecca?
Imagine no baldness. It would be like a nation of supermen.
Those questions are dominating TikTok in 2022, but the answers go back to two of the most brilliant economists the world has ever known, Adam Smith and David Ricardo. In this video, they'll make their first ever YouTube appearance. Wait, we're being told they're unavailable for comment. So we found the next best thing, a real live turkey. Scratch that, a real live person from Turkey who happens to know a thing or two about economics.
My name is Nazlican Kanmaz. I am the Strategic Research Director at SFL, and I have a master's degree from the London School of Economics. And finally, I am from Izmir. The food is great, the weather is great, and also we have some comparative advantages to other countries.
That term, comparative advantage, is the key to Turkey's newfound forte. But we have to start with absolute advantage.
The idea of absolute advantage goes back to Adam Smith. So what he means is that between nations, whichever is producing a certain product cheaper should produce that, and these nations should trade these different products with each other to promote efficiency.
And to promote wealth, as in The Wealth of Nations, Smith's 1776 masterpiece. Suppose Switzerland makes cheese a little cheaper than France does. Simple enough, let's call that the appetizer. But plot twist, what if Switzerland also makes chocolate cheaper than France? A lot cheaper. Should it try to dominate both markets?
But there's another concept that we started using thanks to David Ricardo, that is comparative advantage. And comparative advantage is an economic idea that takes a larger understanding of productivity.
We're going to talk more about sweets in a second, but before we get there, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified of future videos. Okay, let's get to dessert.
So my example would be based on baklava, which is a dessert that we make in Turkey, and it's made up of 50 layers, very thin layers of dough. So let's say that it's me and my grandma. And the two things that we can do is doing research, which I am good at, or making baklava. I'm probably better than my grandma in both research and also making baklava because she would use a lot more butter. But if you start looking at the comparative advantage, which means that the opportunity cost of doing one thing or the other, then I would probably be better off doing the research, and she would probably be better off making baklava, because the opportunity cost for me doing baklava would be that I cannot do research, which probably makes more money than actually making baklava.
And how does the baldness fit into that plan?
Here's how. American doctors probably could do hair transplants better than most, but that would mean less time for American docs to devote to more profitable fields like chemotherapy.
The Chinese have done it.
Done what?
Discovered the cure for baldness.
No, it wasn't the Chinese. Turkey stepped up to satisfy a market demand.
And in Turkey, they can get this hair transplant procedure, and it is very cheap now. So what we see a lot more in Turkey now, especially in Istanbul, because it's also a very big city, that men from all over the world, especially from Europe, come to Istanbul and get this hair transplant procedure done to have healthy hair again. And most of the times you also see these men walking around in the city in Istanbul. They also go around in groups of men that had the same procedure. So I actually had a friend who was visiting Istanbul, and he was not Turkish and he didn't know about the procedure at all, and he thought that this was actually like a religious thing that people do sometimes. But yeah, it's a very common sight that we see in Istanbul nowadays.
You're bald!
No, I'm not. I was bald.
This is far from the first time Turkey has taken the lead on collaboration and trade.
If you know a little bit of your history, Istanbul has always been described as the bridge between East and West.
What a bald paradise that must have been.
And you see a lot of tradespeople living in Istanbul and doing their trades in Istanbul.
Unfortunately, just as the United States contradicts itself, free market capitalism on one hand, the popularity of Donald Trump's build the wall on the other, Turkey doesn't fully embrace its legacy of free trade and open borders.
So Turkey is neighboring Syria, and Syria has been in a war more than 10 years now. And there are a lot of Syrian refugees that come to live, to make a living for themselves and run away from the war. But also there are a lot of stigma towards these people because they don't speak the same language, they don't look like your average Turkish person on the street. And I think it's hurting Turkish economy a lot, but also the society a lot, that there is a lot of stigma against these people who actually are willing to be part of the society and work for a better life for themselves.
Comparative advantage isn't highfalutin economic jargon, it has real-world implications. For immigration and trade policies, Turkey, the US, and the rest of the world should look to David Ricardo's revolutionary concept.
I always defend open borders and free markets because when you allow goods and services to cross the border, it also allows people to cross the borders, and it creates unintended consequences economically and also socially. These hair transplant procedures make Istanbul a great place for people to come for health tourism, but also tourism in general, and it brings a lot of cultures together.
If people can trade and travel freely, comparative advantage is why relatively poor countries like Guatemala and Cuba can build wealth by specializing in coffee and cigars. And it's why bald men all over the world are regaining their hair.
How's your life?
And their confidence.
Yeah, not bad at all.